So, hope you're having a stunning Freedom Day, celebrating 20 years of liberation from the shackles of apartheid and looking back at what has been achieved. Moving on. The war in Ukraine, here we go, and while we are actually celebrating freedom, the war continues and it rages, and as I predicted originally, the war is now becoming evident that it's a proxy war between Russia and NATO and the United States. It's not a battle for Ukraine. Ukraine is simply the pawn. And as predicted, NATO is doing a lot of talking, now moving their arms up, and they know they're going to get into the war. And they're moving armaments up onto the western border of Russia. And one of these days we see that there have been 3 incursions into Russia, or 3 strikes in Russia on Russian soil, which I suppose is being looked at and worked out how to handle it. Meanwhile, Putin or the Kremlin has made it very clear that any armament supplied will be seen as an act of aggression and will be acted on accordingly. So, I mean, it goes without saying that someone's going to start mooring someone one of these days with one of these armaments kind of stuff, and it's just going to escalate from there. But we see the United Nations has now got involved. How quaint that they are now running around, and saw Putin yesterday in Russia. And one thing he did say, which is quite cool, he said the fact there are a lot of perceptions and perspectives, but one thing is clear is there are Russian soldiers' boots on Ukrainian soil, but no Ukrainian on Russian soil. So if it stays that way, they've got the upper hand, but they've got the right on their side. They've got, which is, they have not it's not an infraction on their side. As long as it lasts, won't last. And then, of course, the United Nations passed a resolution saying that the big 5 that have got veto powers in the Security Council must now justify why they should be exercising their veto. So can you see, I mean, obviously China, France, United Kingdom and America, we think that's fine. And Putin and China say, no. Well, I mean, the timing's a bit late. They say it's not in response to the whole of the war. But, I mean, the timing just makes it seem so, doesn't it? That all of a sudden they want Russia to justify. So what's the ambassador, the executive Russian member to the Executive Council going to get up and say, ladies and gentlemen, honorary members, I want to just say the reason why we are hitting Ukraine is because you people are lying shits. And all this time since 1949 with NATO and then the Berlin Wall coming down, you just talk shit and shit and shit and you don't do what you say. So now we decided, fuck it all. We're going to go play with that country till you get involved, and then we're going to fuck you up too. And China's just saying, I don't know, no, relationship, my friend. So what's going to happen now? How does this war go? Where are we going to with the war? Well, there's 3 possible outcomes, aren't there? I mean, either Russia somehow will be convinced or persuaded to take their little troops and their little war machines and go back to Russia. And then they would try and work from there. But I mean, if that's going to happen, that outcome, it'll be a Cold War like never before, won't there? Both sides will be stacking weapons ad infinitum, which means it wouldn't be a done deal. It would be short-lived, as long as Putin is alive anyway, which brings us to the next conclusion, is that Putin, the aim is to take Putin out, which means to send troops and to send forces onto Russian sovereign soil and to go and attack Russia and do what they did to Germany in the Second World War, take out Russia and take out the hierarchy, the government and Kremlin, and reinstate a new, tamer president. It's not Iraq and it's not Libya. That's going to be a bit of a tall order, I think. And the third is, of course, that Putin wins the war. And what does that mean? That means all of a sudden he tells the rest of Europe what to do. And that could be a bit of a frightening situation. And of course, then what about the big guns? What happens if America starts winning? What happens if NATO and the United States start whipping his ass and start moving into Russia? The question would be, what would China do? Are they going to sit still and just look and think? I don't think so. Eh? They'd have to take sides for two reasons. If they don't take sides and Putin starts losing, they pretty much know that he will push the red button. And if they start winning, well, then obviously, or they're having a close fight, that all of a sudden they start running out of resources from Russia and logistics. Wouldn't China step in and help them? Because they won't help the Western world, because obviously because of the Putin threat, first of all, and second, it'll be having hold of NATO both north of them and to the west of them. It would be a dangerous situation. China won't go there. They will rather support NATO, support Russia, to try and force or try and drive this new world order where America and NATO do not hold the upper hand and treat them as cheap servants. So I think it's going to get interesting this week. I still think, and also with how they're fighting. I mean, have a look at Putin now, Mariupol. He turned around, gave these people a chance for free offering. No, we want to die heroes. And he left them. It was a bit of an embarrassment more than anything else. So now he's bunker busting them. He's starting to drop bunker buster bombs. And this is what he could do. He could do any time. He could go and start literally flattening the country. And as I predicted last time, he's basically doing that. He's moving from east to west, and he's methodically, systematically taking over the eastern Donbas. So I think he's pretty much on track, and as much as the West and Europe shouts, no, he's losing the war and the morale is bad with these soldiers and stuff, I think it's spin, obviously. It's turning around and trying to, well, beat them on the barrel, It's one of those kind of stories, trying the good news stories. But the reality, I think, is far from that. I think that Russia is far from crippled or even hurt. I think their resources are phenomenal and they can keep going. And I think the war would still best be served by not putting a price on Putin's head, by saying we need to resolve this as statesmen and guaranteeing that they will not do anything to change the state of the president or bring about regime change in Russia. They would guarantee they would not do that, and they could have their own elections and do what they want. But first of all, guarantee the safety of Putin, and secondly is talk about forming a neutrality buffer zone between Russia, China, and of course the whole of Europe. And I think that could work out. But let's see what, the Pied Piper and his merry men actually come up with. Have a lekker day. Ciao.